Well, hey guys, Mr. Delcourt back again for some more remote learning. Today we're going to talk about Maine's reptiles. So we've been looking at amphibians thus far, mainly focusing in on frogs. Today we'll just take a day and we'll look briefly at Maine's reptiles. And you guys will maybe get a look here at some of the ones you're familiar with, maybe some of the ones you didn't know were around. So first of all, what's the difference between a reptile and an amphibian? Well, reptiles and amphibians are both poikilothermic ectotherms. They're both cold-blooded. They both lay eggs, although we do have some snakes in Maine that are ovoviviparous, meaning they're going to seemingly give birth to live young, which is kind of a unique thing for reptiles, and specifically snakes compared to amphibians. They're all fully terrestrial, meaning they have an amniotic egg, so they can lay an egg on land. They don't need water to reproduce. That makes them different than amphibians. They have scaly, dry skin that's capable of retaining water. That's pretty unique for a reptile, and that's why we can see reptiles living in deserts all over the world. And Maine is the northernmost limit for many of these reptile species we have. In fact, a lot of our reptiles here in Maine don't live much north of York and Cumberland County. This is just too far north for reptiles to really make a good go of it. We do have things like northern water snakes and garter snakes way up to the northern border of Maine, and common snapping turtles, but for the most part, our reptiles are confined to kind of the southern half of the state, and they are at the extreme northern limit of their range here in Maine. You go south of us, and there are reptiles everywhere. So here in Maine, though, kind of unique. We're unique in that I believe we're the only state in the lower 48 that does not have a lizard. So we have snakes, we have turtles in Maine, but we have no native lizards, which is kind of interesting. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about, again, we mentioned last class the order Anura, those are frogs. If we get into reptiles, the order Chelonia, those are our turtles. So they have a bony, what most people would call a shell. A scientist would call it a carapace on top, a plastron on bottom. And the carapace and plastron are composed of scutes, these kind of bony plates that grow separately but form that shell that the turtle's body is protected by. They are all oviparous. They lay eggs. And some are aquatic, and we have some turtles in Maine that are pretty terrestrial that spend the majority of their life on land. And turtles are long-lived creatures, and they have low recruitment, which means they're slow reproducing. That makes each member of a turtle population really important, and some of our turtles in the state have been kind of decimated by the pet trade over the years of people collecting them for pets and really doing a number on populations. It takes a long time to get an adult turtle to breeding age, and taking one out of the population really takes a while to replace. So we have 7 species of turtle here in Maine. All of them are found in southern Maine. And I'm not going to go through pictures of each one today. That's up to you guys to do as you're picking out a species you want to work on. But we have the eastern painted turtle that's seen right here. These guys are common in every little pond and marsh around here in southern Maine and nearly statewide. We have common snapping turtles, which many of us probably have experience with. The musk turtle is an interesting one that's very rarely observed in southern Maine, although they're around. They very rarely ever come out of the water. They're small little guys too. There's a wood turtle, that species of special concern. That's a wood turtle on the screen right now. We have spotted turtles here in York County only, maybe just barely into Cumberland County. Really neat little state-threatened turtle. The Blandings turtle is a state-endangered turtle that's found right in our area. One of the ones I've never seen, and I would really love to find a Blandings turtle. And then we have the box turtle as well, and that is a species that's state-endangered. And there's actually debate whether there are even box turtles in Maine anymore. There hasn't been one observed in a long, long time. And a lot of scientists are kind of thinking that maybe they are extirpated, but we haven't quite classified them there yet. We were just saying endangered, but there has not been a record of a box turtle in quite a while. I used to do some work for Maine Audubon identifying roadkill of amphibians and reptiles, so I would get these files mailed to me every month of images that they would want me to identify, and every time I would scan through real quick, and there was always one or two that would say box turtle, and I'd get really excited thinking, wow, we're going to document a box turtle. And I would open it up, and it would always be either a wood turtle or some other species, maybe a Blandings. So I never saw one in that record keeping I was doing for Audubon either. But so those are our Maine turtles. You can maybe pick one of those for a profile if you'd like. Or we could talk about snakes, members of the order Squamata. Snakes and lizards both belong to that order, although we, as I said, we have no lizards in Maine. And snakes, as we know, lack limbs. They have these cool overlapping scales. They move using their muscles on their stomach, their ventral muscles, and they are all carnivorous, right? So we have 9 species of snakes in Maine. The eastern garter is super common around here. The majority of the time I find a snake in southern Maine, it's an eastern garter snake. The northern water snake, shown right there, is very commonly found around marshes and permanent bodies of water statewide. We have milk snakes, which are really, really neat, have a cool coloration on them. The smooth green snake, which appears just as it's described. The ribbon snake, which looks a lot like an eastern garter snake, just darker. That's a species of special concern. The black racer, which is one I've never seen but would love to find, is an all-black snake with a white belly. And they live in a few different sites around the state. They're state endangered, as we said. They're known to exist at the Kennebunk Plains Wildlife Management Area, and I've spent some time down there looking for them and have not found one yet. The red-bellied and ringneck snakes are tiny little things that fit in the palm of your hand, full grown, and spend the majority of their time underground, very rarely observed, as is the brown snake, this tiny little brown snake that's only found in York County. So we have 9 species. You could pick one of those if you have one you're most interested in for your profile today. But yeah, so that's just a really quick look at the species we have here in Maine. I encourage you to go through them and take a look at images of each one. I didn't want to make the video too long today, so just wanted to introduce you to those 9 species. You can pause the video wherever you'd like to pick out the species you'd like to do your profile on. But feel free to go ahead and open up the assignment posted under today's topic, pick a species, and do a little bit of research to create a profile on the one you choose. Thanks a bunch for tuning in today. As always,